This is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. If you will accept this towering truth and dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who peers from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self, capital S. This is the great secret known by the seers and the prophets and the mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. This is the truth you can only know experientially. My name is Wayne Dyer, and I'm 70 years old. Woo. And I have sex almost every day. Yeah. Almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday, almost. At 70, almost counts. Actually, I got that line from Jack LaLanne, who said that on his 93rd birthday, and he just passed away 3 days ago. He was a dear friend. He was 96 years old, Jack LaLanne. A great teacher. He was a chiropractor in the early days of his life. And anyway, a moment for Jack. I was up this morning around 5:30 and looking out over the balcony at the sea, and I was thinking it was 50 years ago, a half a century ago, that I was in the Navy, the United States Navy, on board the largest ship in the world at that time. The USS Ranger. It was an aircraft carrier. All the possessions that I had at that time, at the age of 20, was a sea bag. It could all fit in a sea bag, and it was enough. It was enough. It's interesting how much we've accumulated and how little we need, and how much we're attached to what we don't need. The Tao taught me to let it go. I still struggle when I go through my closets and give things away that I haven't worn in 3 years or 5 years, thinking someone else will wear them. But we get attached, don't we? And we start believing that we are these things that we've accumulated. And I was reminded of a poem by William Butler Yeats, the great Irish poet. Anybody here from Ireland? I know there is. Hi, good morning. Good morning. Do you know why there's exactly 239 beans in Irish stew? Did I tell you that? Because if they added one bean, it would be too farty. Little Irish humor here this morning. But Yeats was a great poet. He died in 1939. A lot of people never understood because he wasn't sick. I always felt I had a very great connection to Yeats. I always felt that he knew what was coming in 1939. He could see the rise of the worldwide conflict that was about to, that had already started in Europe, but was heading across the whole planet. And I think he just left. He was such a sensitive soul that I don't think he wanted to stay around and watch that Holocaust, that worldwide Holocaust. At any rate, I was leaning over the railing there this morning and just watching the sea go by, and recalling doing that 50 years ago, night after night. I'd go out onto that flight deck and I would lean over that and just watch this huge, huge ocean. And Yeats said, he put it this way, because now I think of myself, here I am 70 years old, half a century later. He said, an aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick. unless soul claps its hands and sings, and louder sings, for every tatter in its mortal dress. Isn't that a great image? A tattered coat upon a stick. Unless you find your soul, and then you become immortal. At any rate, I think about people who would show up here to listen to me speak about these kinds of ideas, thousands of you or so. And I wonder, would anyone come if they didn't have some kind of a sense that they would like to elevate their consciousness or improve their life or get to a higher place now while we're here? There was another great poet, his name was T.S. Eliot, and T.S. Eliot said that we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time. I think he was talking about death, but I'm not. I think we can return to the place from which we originated, our source, our spirit, and know it for the first time without having to leave these sticks that are who we are. You know? At least we've come to believe that. So that if I put my hands here throughout this entire time that we speak here this morning, I'm speaking about something called an ordinary level of consciousness, just what it means to live, what you've sort of been trained from the time that you were little boys and little girls, wherever you grew up. You were trained to get to here. And you were taught a lot of things about who you are, what you're capable of, what's possible for you, what's not, what is reality, what you can accomplish, what will always elude you, and what it means to be a person. And it's all in this thing called ordinary levels of consciousness. But for me, at the age of 70, I have come to a new awareness, and some things have taken place in my life and changed me in such a dramatic way. And I live from this place virtually every day. I'm doing it right now. That I know that there's something much more than just living an ordinary level of consciousness. There's something beyond that. And I have been blessed to experience it and to live it and to make it a part of my life and to live miracles and to see them taking place on a regular basis. I've come to know that who I am is not this body that I'm in and not the things that I've accumulated and the accomplishments that are part of my resume. That who I am is not what other people think of me. It's not my reputation. It's something, I don't know what to call it, but it's, I will refer to it up here as an extraordinary level of consciousness. I wrote a book a few years ago, about 10 years ago. It was called The Power of Intention. I wrote it at the time of a great crisis in my life. My wife had left. We had 7 children together, and she had decided that she wanted to go in a different direction in her life and had met someone else. And she had every reason and right to do so, I think, but at the time, it was devastating to me. I was reading Nancy's book this morning, this little book of poetry that she wrote, and it really touched me. Nancy, where are you in the room? Are you? Because I know you've gone through a crisis recently in your life. She wrote a little poem in here called on the threshold of something new. She said, "This is the summer of heartache and goodbye. I wake and lay in bed remembering all the things that will never happen. All the places we will not go. All the things we will not do. The taste in my mouth is of a marriage crashing." And that's a poet, Nancy. That's really, really, really beautiful. And I endorse this book by saying, I love Nancy's poetry. Her words convey urgent messages from the soul. And that's what poetry does. And when I get tears in my eyes and choked up reading a few words, it's very different than prose. So congratulations, Nance. I'm very, very proud of you. So at that time of crisis in my life, when I didn't really know if I could just breathe anymore, it was so painful. And my kids will tell you, two of them are here. My daughter Tracy, my oldest daughter, right over there. Just say hi, honey. That's my daughter. You'll see her on the show. And my daughter Serena, now 25, who I'm so proud of, both of them, very much. I mean, Tracy had a very successful job with a guaranteed income for the rest of her life and benefits and everything that could come to you. But we would talk pretty much on a daily basis about her not feeling something inside. Shakespeare wrote about it in Henry VI. My crown, he said, he was a different kind of king. My crown, he said, is not on my head, it's in my heart. Having your crown in your heart, he said, my crown is called content. Not decked with Indian stones and diamonds, nor to be seen. A crown it is that seldom kings enjoy, a crown called contentment. And she didn't feel content. And I would urge her to take the chance and take the risk, and she finally did it and let go and started her own business designing handbags, and you can find out more about it if you look at something called Urban Junket, and she just started her own. In fact, we was speaking the other night in Fort Lauderdale, and she had about 50 of them in the back of the room, and they're made out of recycled water bottles. 100 recycled water bottles makes a purse, a beautiful purse. You have one there? She probably does in her hand. There it is, made up. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, there she is, yeah. And my daughter Serena, the night before that, put on a fundraiser based about a film called The Playground, which is about ending the trafficking of young girls into prostitution, that over 100,000 girls in America are trafficked and sold into slavery. And she's made it her life's commitment to see what she can do about it. And she did a fundraiser for that and raised something like $20,000 or $25,000 that night. So I'm very proud, very proud. Serena. And back there when I was going through this crisis, and crises are things that we think shouldn't be happening, you know? And we sort of curse God when they happen, you know? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a dear friend of mine who wrote all about death and dying, and she passed away herself a few years ago. She was a triplet from Switzerland. I loved her very much. She said, if you shield the mountain from the windstorms, you'll never see the beauty of the carvings. You know, that out of that despair that I felt 10 or 11 years ago, I became a more compassionate human being. Softer, gentler, easier to be with, less judgmental, less fearful, radically humble, as opposed to radically ego-directed earlier. These kinds of things are blessings. I just read a book that's just so sensational that I have to tell you about it. It's not here, but it's on the bestseller list. It's called Unbroken by Laura Hillerbrand. Has anybody in the room read Unbroken? Anybody? You have? Did you finish it? What happened when you finished it? Come up. Come here. Yeah, just walk over. Yeah. Tell you, because I want to tell them, but I can see that it impacted you. Come here, sweetheart. Tell them.
Hi.
Just tell them how you felt when you finished it.
It is the most amazing book I've ever read. Mm-hmm. And
Closer to the mic.
You all have to read it if you haven't. It leaves you with a sense of awe and gratitude for what our military people have done for us, number one. This man lived through an amazing, what would you call it? It was a journey. It was unbelievable what we can face and come out with an attitude of love and beauty and humility for life.
Couldn't do any better. I couldn't have done it any better. It's the story of Louis Zamperini, who was the world record holder in the mile for high school, and was set to be the world record holder in, he was going to be the first man to break the 4-minute mile. Everyone was sure that was going to happen. As it turned out, Roger Bannister did that many years later. And there was a man who was one of his closest friends and was also a miler. His name was Glenn Cunningham. Glenn Cunningham was burned all over the bottom of his legs and had the world record in the mile, 4:06. When I was in the 10th grade in Detroit at Denby High School, Glenn Cunningham came to our high school and spoke to the entire school on 2 assemblies. And then I was on the track team at that time. I was later a track coach. And I shook his hand, and there I am reading about him in this unbelievable book. Laura Hillerbrand is also the author of Seabiscuit. She's probably our greatest narrative historical writer. And she took this man's life, Louis Zamperini, who was set to run in the Olympics in 1940, which was to be in Tokyo. But the war broke out, and he was drafted. And he lived on the ocean. He was shot down. His plane crashed in a bombardiering mission, and he was on the ocean for 47 days with no food and no water, and survived by. And one of the things I'm speaking about here is that the entire time that he was on this raft with no food or no water, they had a screwdriver and a few other things. He killed 2 sharks with a screwdriver and ate their liver. And would catch birds, but he lived off of these pilot fish. And he and one other man. You have to imagine 47 days in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, traveled 2,000 miles. And all the time that he was on and talking about these sharks that were circling, he fought off sharks all the time. 3 of them landed on his raft, and they would take them off, and they just kept circling. One time, one came right up at his mouth and grabbed him, and he had to punch him. And by the way, every word of this has been documented. So it's. And then he discovered that the sharks actually saved his life. Without the sharks, they could never have survived. You know why? Because the pilot fish stay with the sharks. These tiny little fish that keep jumping. If you've ever been out in the ocean, you'll see them. And they stay with the sharks. And without the sharks, there would have been no pilot fish. And without the pilot fish, they wouldn't have survived. It was almost as if these sharks, which we think of as these horrible beasts that are going to devour us, are providing us with our way to live. If you shield the mountain from the windstorms, you'll never see the beauty of the carvings. All of the struggles, the difficulties, the hardships in your life. As luck would have it, after 2,000 miles, they ended up on a place called Kwajalein in the Pacific, which was occupied by the Japanese. And he was put into, for 2 years, a Japanese concentration camp and tortured to the point of weighing 80 pounds. He was a 5'10" man. And the rest of the story I don't want to tell you. But when I think about the bravery and the luck and the thousands of men who didn't make it, and yet this man did, and what he had inside of him, when I finished the book, I turned it over and I sat down and I had the same, because I watched you as I was asking that. And I stood up and I just went, wow. And there's a man here in this room here today who is one of my heroes, who was in Vietnam for 2 tours of duty. And he watched as young boys were brought in from the battlefields. He was a medic over there. And one day, out in Pleiku, where he lived, where he was, out this isolated area of South Vietnam, 50-some young men were brought in, most of them dying, and he would hold their hand and go to get them some water and come back, and they would be gone. And he was one of the few survivors, and was given the Bronze Star, which is the 4th highest medal that you can receive for valor in battle. And it tore his heart apart for a very long time, until at the age of about 69, he developed Parkinson's disease from the Agent Orange that was being used over there in Vietnam. And it changed his life. Parkinson's brought him out of his shell. He began writing and publishing and talking. He was a man that talked very little. I was with him for 10 years in an orphanage, and we slept in the same bed until I was 14. And he was always my hero. And he's here today, my brother David. Dave, stand up. I want people to see him. Come here. I love you, man. There are people here on this ship who will be able to help you with that crazy Parkinson's. But again, if you shield the mountain, if you take away if you take away the storms, if you take away the hardships, it's you know, our father left us when we were babies, and never looked back, never made a phone call, never sent a penny of support to our mother. She was forced to put us into an orphanage and got us back together when I was 9 years old, and Dave was 11. She's still with us. She's going to be 95 in April. Yeah. And she devoted her life to getting her family, her 3 boys, back together. We have an older brother that we didn't even know until we were 9 and 11. And you know, one of the most significant things that ever happened to me in my life was in In 1974, I found out that my father had been dead for 10 years and that he was buried in Biloxi, Mississippi. And I'm not going to tell the whole story because I wrote it out in a book years ago called You'll See It When You Believe It. But we're doing a movie about it in March, my relationship to my father, the man I never saw. I met him only after he was dead. But at his gravesite in Biloxi, Mississippi, on the 27th of August, 1974, my life changed because I went to his grave and I stood there on his grave, walking back and forth, walking back and forth. I originally wanted to go to his grave because I really wanted to piss on it. I was so filled with anger and hatred towards this man. And I would wake up every morning from the time I was about 17 until I was in my 30s, just filled with rage and just sweating sometimes and fighting and hitting him and just, and I didn't even know where he was. And a cousin that we had that I didn't even know, her name was Dorothy Phillips, called me and said, your father passed away 10 years ago, and told me where he was buried. And I was sent there by an angel. I arrived there in a way that impossible to describe. And when I got there on his grave, I didn't know why I was sent there and how it could all have happened the way it did. But I remember walking away from his gravesite and and saying to myself, and saying out loud, from this moment on, something came over me. I said, from this moment on, I send you love. His name was Melvin Lyle Dyer, born in 1914 and passed away just before his 50th birthday in 1964. Died of cirrhosis of the liver. You know what that's about. My life was out of control at that time. I was overweight, bad relationships. My writing was going nowhere. I was heading towards an early grave myself. The way I was eating, the way I was living, filled with anger. And I said to my father at his grave, from this moment on, I send you love. And I walked away and I put the rope across the driveway, and because he wasn't really buried in a cemetery, he was buried in the back in the grounds of a hotel. And everything in my life changed from that. I went back to New York, where I was teaching at St. John's University, and in 14 days, I wrote a book called Your Erroneous Ounce. In 14 days. If you look at the December 31st edition of the New York Times on 1979, you will see it was the #1 book of the entire decade, and it didn't come out until late in 1976. And that includes fiction and nonfiction. Today, there's 55 million copies of it in 47 languages around the world. And it all came about because of one act of forgiveness. Mark Twain had a wonderful way of describing forgiveness. He said, forgiveness is the... Serena, what is it? Do you know it? Come here.
I know all of his lines. That's why he does this.
This is not a lie.
Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it.
Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. Like if you can send love in the face of the kinds of things that we think of shouldn't be happening to us. And that's what I have done with my wife, who is still my wife, even though she lives with someone else. And I love her dearly. She's the mother of 7 of my children. How could I not? And she's a beautiful soul. And in the process of going through that crisis, and there are so many that have showed up in my life, I really believe that if you come into this world with big dharma. How many have seen the movie The Shift? If you haven't seen it, you'll see it because it'll be playing on Channel 38 for the whole week. Or you can pick up a copy of it. It's a book that I really want everyone in the world. I'd like to get 10 million people watching it because I think we can shift the consciousness of the whole planet if we can get enough people watching it. It's with Portia de Rossi, who is the spouse of Ellen DeGeneres. I was blessed to marry them on August the 15th, 2.5 years ago. Yeah. And it was my first, I took one acting lesson and then went into it, but I decided I wanted to do a film that was quality, not fluff, and not someone trying to be a movie star who isn't. I wanted it to really have, and we had the best people and the best directors and a great budget. Louise Hay put the money up from Hay House for it, and it's a film I'm extremely proud of, and something every time I watch it I see something new. But if you come into this world with big dharma, dharma is a Sanskrit word that means purpose, what you're here for. If you show up with big dharma, you're going to get big obstacles. It's just in the way of things. It's almost as if when I was, before I showed up into this world, I had a conversation with God, and God said, what would you like to do on this time around? I said, well, I'd really like to just teach self-reliance. And God said, a whole lifetime? Just teaching self-reliance? It's all I've ever done. I mean, Dave will tell you, even when we were in the orphanage, that's what I was doing. He's written me letters and stories because he's 18 months older than I am, and he remembers what I was doing when I was 3 and 4 and 5, and even in helping him, because Dave was very sick when he was young. And I felt a real strong bond, of course, and a protector. And we protected each other. We had no parents. I used to tell kids who came there, this is a great place. There's no parents. Relax. You know, it's like, But when you have this big dharma, big things happen to you. And God said, you're going to teach self-reliance for a whole lifetime, then we better get your little ass into an orphanage. And you can spend a decade or so there, and then you'll get it. Because what I've learned is that when you want to learn something intellectually, what you do is you cogitate on it, you memorize it, you study it, you go through all of the things that you learned in school about how you learn calculus or how you learn history or how you learn science. And then you take a test on it and you sort of intellectually you get it. But if you want to learn something spiritually, there's no other way other than to experience it. You have to experience it. And it was almost as if God said to me, you must experience it in order to teach it. And then no one will ever be able to dissuade you. There's no one who ever comes to me with a crisis who I don't believe has within them the capacity to transform themselves and overcome it. It doesn't make any difference what your story is. And your story, very often people see a lack of empathy because I just think that your story is your story and it's what you have to go through, you know? And there's no other way around it. It's just everything that's ever happened to you had to. And the evidence for it is that it did. You don't really need any more. It was supposed to. You go through those things. The question is, do I go through it with anger and bitterness and hatred and so on in my heart, or do I go through it with an understanding and a love and also gratitude? I mean, Louis Zamperini went through things that you just wouldn't think a human being could possibly survive. He's 93 years old today. I've determined I'm going to meet him. I've already asked Hay House to arrange a meeting with Laura Hillerbrand and myself, and I'm going to meet this man. I want to see in person how someone could survive that. And I don't care what your story is, after you've read that, you'll realize that your life was really marshmallows and puffs when you see what the human spirit is capable of. Because I'm really heading somewhere today. I'm just sort of warming up here. To have you leave here when we do, a little later this morning, with an awareness of who you really are. And it's not who you think you are. I'm going to ask you to make a huge shift. But these obstacles, these struggles that show up in your life, I've been down the road of addiction, folks. Been there, seen it, experienced it, and left it behind, and give thanks for it. Been down the road of being abandoned. Abandoned by my father, abandoned by my mother, abandoned by my wife, abandoned by people who I've loved very deeply. And all of it is something I have extreme gratitude for. It's taught me about who I really am. Been down the road of a heart attack, and been down the road of leukemia, which I just found out I have 18 months ago. And it's turned me around. It's another thing to be grateful for. And by the way, I'm healthier now than I probably was before I found out I had it. Yeah. And there's a lesson in what I'm saying here for all of you is to not be feeling sorry for yourself, but instead to be in a state of gratitude, and not just for the good things and the right people and the right events, but for all of it. And the end of that book just blows you away, doesn't it? The end of the book, when you find out what transforms in his heart. Because during the time that he was out in the middle of the ocean on a raft with no water for 6 days and ready to die, they were days, hours from death. And he prayed and prayed and deeply prayed, and water came. Remember, the rain came out of a cloudless sky. Twice it happened for him. And he vowed to devote his life to God if he could be saved. But he forgot his vow when he was saved. And then he remembered it. Just thinking about it, I want to read it again. It's unbroken. I'll turn that thing into the #1 bestseller in the country. I know I will. I do those things. Yeah. It's a book that it has a magnet. It's like you put it down and you go over here and it says, "Come read me." That kind of a book. Just like mine, right, Serena? And Tracy, same thing, yeah. So this big Dharma, and this trip that I'm taking in June, which is the last of these kinds of things I've done them to Greece, I've done them to Egypt, I've done them to Singapore, I've done them to Australia, I've done them around the world, taking people. But this is the culmination for me. We're going to meet in Rome in June, and there's 160 people will be there with me, and I'm going to lecture in each of these 3 places about these the people and how they have impacted me in their life. We're going to take 6 buses from Rome up to Assisi, stopping off at Padre Pio's birthplace on the way. Person whose picture I carry with me whenever I speak, wouldn't come out here without it ever. There he is. He's now a Saint Pio, by the way. How many know who Padre Pio was? A handful of you. Look him up on the internet. He passed away in the 1960s, but a miracle man, God on earth. And then we're going to spend 3 days in Assisi, which twice I've been there. And if you see the film, you'll see that the story emerges of a miracle that took place when St. Francis was there with me. I've read everything about St. Francis. Wrote a book in Assisi big part of it called The Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, based on the prayer of St. Francis. And miracles happened for me there. I had a knee that was supposed to be replaced, bone on bone. They told me all the years of running and so on that it wouldn't survive. I'd have to have it replaced. And I was carrying a man on my back who had multiple sclerosis, and we were collapsing at the tower at San Damiano, and St. Francis appeared and, with his hands, and just moved his hands. And I stood up, and I got to the top of where we were headed at the at the castle there, and my knee was healed. Still a little sore, but no problem. That was 11 years ago. I walk 10 miles a day on it. I swim on it. I do yoga on it, and just in a moment. My wife was waiting at the top there and said, "What happened? All the other people are out of breath. You're running up the stairs with somebody on your back. What is going on?" I said, "I don't know. Just a miracle occurred." Assisi is like that. From there, we're going to take our own plane that we have chartered to Lourdes in France, which, if you haven't been there, it was a turning point, another momentous, miraculous moment in my life, doing the procession, holding the candles, where people have come to see this Saint Bernadette, who saw the visions of the Blessed Mary, 18 of them, back in the 1860s. And when she passed away in 1874, they buried her in a little wooden box. And then in 1926, when she was declared a saint, they went and took her body out of the casket to have it interred. And it turns out that it hadn't deteriorated one bit in over 50 years in a coffin, in a little wooden coffin. I know that's hard to believe, but you can actually see her body now if you go to France and see. You know, the same thing happened with Paramahansa Yogananda. When he passed away, 21 days after he died, there's a letter from the coroner in Los Angeles saying, what are we going to do with this body? It's not deteriorating. It's not breaking down. And it never did. It's called the uncorrupt bodies of the great saints. And that place in Lourdes touched my heart in a way that I've never been touched before. So we're going back. It's a great place of healing. Maybe I'm going there for myself. I don't know, but I'll have 160 people with me. And then from there, we're flying to Dubrovnik to go to Medjugorje, where the 3 young ladies saw the Blessed Mother appear, and we're going to meet with them as well and end up back in Rome. So I call it a journey of a lifetime. Also in this room is another hero of mine, before I get into the meat of what I want to speak about. It's been an hour. Can you believe an hour could go by? It may have dragged like hell for you, I don't know. But for me, something happens when you get yourself into a spiritual, experiential place. And I looked at my watch and I thought, it's probably 9:20, maybe 20 minutes. And it's 10 o'clock almost. It's time, something, my friend Stuart Wilde calls it fat time, where time just fattens out and you lose a sense of that there is anything such as time, not this thing that we measure with our watch. But there's a man also in this audience who I've become a very close friend of. He's a world-class cardiologist. He was voted Cardiologist of the Year because in Ohio, where he lives, he's so dedicated to it. He brought me to Akron to speak many years ago, and we filled this big auditorium with several thousand people there in Akron, and I gave a lecture that night. And he was actually using it to raise money to get these machines into high schools, because every year in America, between 15 and 20 kids die who have heart attacks in football or basketball or track practice because there's not a machine there that if it was there, like there's one, I'm sure there's several here on this ship, they're on all airplanes, they're, in many, many places. They're not really that expensive, and you save a life just like that. You put it on there. I had to take the training to do it. I don't know what the machine is called. He'll tell you. But he was instrumental in raising enough money to get one in every single high school in the state of Ohio. And now, what he has done is gone to Washington tirelessly to attempt to get this national legislation passed where we can have enough money to put one in every high school in America, and perhaps every high school in the world, where they ought to be. Because a kid goes into cardiac arrest because it happened up here in Iowa just recently, just a few days ago. Kids are collapsing on the football field, and he not only has he tirelessly devoted himself to that, but along comes another one of these obstacles into his life. And his young son Tyler, he was on his way out to Maui to appear at a program that I do every year out there in Maui, a 2-day, 3-day weekend. I talk like this for 3 days out there, just letting God speak through me. And but on the way, unfortunately, his son Tyler, 20 years old, is involved in a crash and hits a tree and becomes a quadriplegic. Can't even move his fingers. And Terry has given up his practice and devoted his life to taking care of his young son, who rejects him and is angry at him and sometimes tells him how much he hates him. And yet there he is doing it. Getting him here on this cruise was a miracle because he doesn't spend any time away from his son, but he arranged to have his wife take care of it while he could be here with us on this cruise. He's my cardiologist, he's my doctor, he's my friend, and he's also a great singer, and I'm going to have him come up and sing a song for you and say a few words. Terry Gordon, come on up here, Doc. You're so cute.
You are too. Is that a purple Sharpie in your pocket, or are you just excited to see me?
Hey, you're a doctor. Will you behave yourself?
I'm going to try.
Besides, it's very little. That's not, it's not that.
We all knew that. Well, about a year and a half ago, my daughter, Maddie Rose, came home from Chicago where she was working. And I could tell something was up. And I asked her, and she said with a sigh, Dad, it seems like the older I get, the more difficult life becomes. I thought when I obtained control over my life that it would be different. And then a single tear trickled down her cheek, and she said, it just isn't happening like that. And I said to her, darling, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. I think if we are to grow, if we are to progress on this path we call life, we'll have to face greater obstacles. Because it is only by overcoming those obstacles that we get propelled onto a higher path toward enlightenment. We should actually be grateful for the crap that comes our way. The next morning, 6:20, I received the second worst phone call a parent could get. The voice on the other end of the line said, your son's been involved in a car accident. And he shattered his neck. And then came the dreaded words, your son is quadriplegic. You can't imagine. Can't imagine the thoughts that go through your mind. Within an hour, I had hastily packed a bag and bolted from the house because they were getting ready to life flight him from Durango to Denver, where he would undergo emergency surgery. So within an hour, I was out of the house. I left my wife wailing. But I couldn't stay to console her. I had to get out to Colorado. Somehow I made it on an overbooked flight, and I was seated next to a window, and I was like a caged cat, I was now incommunicado for 3 hours. And I didn't know if Tyler was alive, dead, brain damaged, if he had sustained any other injuries. I just didn't know. And about halfway there, I became slowly enveloped in this cocoon of white noise. It was a place of unfathomable peace. And I can't honestly tell you I heard the words of the divine, but the message was clear. And it said, Terry, you've just given your daughter wise counsel. You've shared with her truth. Now, although you can talk the talk, now you must live it. And then the most profound thought entered my mind. And I believe it was the divine saying, treat this as if it was something you had chosen. I had come to a fork in the road. I could have stayed on the chaotic one. Instead, I started traversing a much more peaceful one. The falls of your life provide you the energy to propel you onto a higher path. I remember this voice also saying, everything is in perfect order. Everything, even this. What I would like to do this morning is to sing you a song. It was written by my brother-in-law, Eric Neff. And it goes like this. Rain is falling down, white noise beneath the sound of echoes from days gone by. It seems I hear those sounds when there's nothing else around, making me wanna try. And when I feel the need to be on my way home again, I close my eyes to see the light that is my long-lost friend. The spring feels on my mind, thinking back to simpler times when life found me living day by day. The memories don't let go, though all the while the distance grows from where I am to where I used to know. And when I feel the need to be on my way home again, I close my eyes to see the light that is my long-lost friend. Rain is falling down, white noise beneath the sound of echoes from days gone by. It seems I hear those sounds when there's nothing else around, making me wanna try. Namaste.
Thank you, Terry. Terry Gordon, Dr. Terry Gordon, my cardiologist. You did it again, Terry. You upstaged me, you bastard. Nice job. Nice job. Okay, when my shoes come off, we come up with the heavy stuff now. So if you want to move your life from ordinary to here, as I was speaking about in The Power of Intention, in the midst of the great crisis of my life, truly the great crisis of my life, far more so than a heart attack or leukemia or an orphanage, when my family was broken up and I never saw it coming. I wrote a book which has just been released as a gift edition, a beautiful gift edition, with artwork all the way through it, because it's been done so well. They want to put it out there that way. So, Terry, you have this? Where do you go? You have this? Would you like a copy? Come on up. I'd like to give it to you. It's just unbelievably, what the artwork on this, what they've done with this is so beautiful. That's for you, my friend. The Power of Intention. And in The Power of Intention, I carried around with me a quotation from Carlos Castaneda in my pocket for almost a year. I was carrying it when my wife had told me what was happening. And I remember sitting down to start writing it, and it was based upon this observation, because intention generally is thought of as something that we do when we have a very strong sense of motivation. I have been called the father of motivation for many, many. I have 8 children. I don't need to be the father of anything else, okay? There's plenty in that for me. But I prefer not to be called the father of motivation. I'd much rather be, if I have to be the father of something else, it would be the father of inspiration. Because motivation is really an intention that's really thought of as when you get a hold of an idea and you're highly motivated, then you just plow through, and no matter what the obstacles are, you go through them, and you don't allow anything to interfere with you in your life. And that's really the work of the ego. That's what we kind of believe takes place. But I'm coming from a very different place here this morning. Inspiration is the reverse of that. Motivation is you get a hold of an idea and carry it through no matter what. Inspiration says an idea gets a hold of you, and it won't let you go. And it takes you where you were intended to go before you ever showed up here from the world of spirit. And all of us came from that same world of spirit. Quantum physics teaches us that particles do not create particles. Jesus put it this way: it's the spirit that gives life. The flesh counts for nothing. We all come from an invisible place. Every particle that has shown up originates in something called spirit or energy. And that's our origination point. And that's what T.S. Eliot was speaking about when he said, we shall return to the place from which we originated. And one of my great memories is of watching Arthur Miller be interviewed by the New York Times, and I was going to be next. And they asked this 91-year-old playwright, the man who wrote The Crucible and The Death of a Salesman, remember Willie Loman? Read those now that you don't have to, and write a test on them because they're so good. And Arthur Miller was asked the question, are you working on another play? He was 91. And I never forgot his answer. He said, I don't know. He said, but I probably am. Meaning that there's something bigger moving the pieces around in our lives, and that when it gets a hold of you, it takes you where you want to go. My brother Dave, writing his stories and publishing things now in his 70s, is not an accident. All of the stuff that you had to go through in order to get there is what gives you the fuel to move on even further. And this is what Castaneda said. He said, in the universe, there is an unmeasurable, indescribable force, which those who live of the source call intention. And that absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link. That is, intention is not something that you do. It is something from which you originated to which you will return, and it's called intent. And when you can connect to it, which is my mission for the remainder of time that we'll have here this morning, to help you to see how to connect to that field of intention and let it take you. You surrender to it. Very much like what I'm doing up here this morning. I had no idea what I was going to be talking about at the beginning. I never do. I just always repeat a line from A Course in Miracles that says, if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. If you just had a knowing, and you're listening to someone who has a knowing, I just absolutely know that I'm not alone up here, or when I write, or when I do anything in my life. And because of that knowing, synchronistic events and the right people and the financing and all of the things that you think are just impossible to show up begin to happen because you're aligned in a totally different way than you ever were before. And then he said, sorcerers are not only concerned with understanding and explaining this connecting link, but they are especially concerned with cleansing it of the numbing effects brought about by the concerns of living at ordinary levels of consciousness. So I would say to those of you who are here and those of you watching that there must be something that would motivate you to want to come and say, I would like to move to a higher place in my life. And in order to be able to move to a higher place in your life, you must be willing to change your concept of yourself. What is your concept of yourself? Your concept of yourself is everything that you believe to be true about yourself. And everything that you believe to be true about yourself has gotten you right here where you are at this ordinary level of consciousness, or wherever you are where you'd like to get higher. What you believe to be true has gotten you here. If you want to get here, you must be willing to change what you have come to believe is true. And I want to tell you right now, only a handful of you will be willing to do it. Changing what you believe are your truths are the things that have been embedded into you from the time that you were little children. They are the memes that I speak about in the book, Excuses Be Gone. And when we have these belief systems that tell us what we can and can't become and how difficult it's going to be and that you can't overcome this. Do you know, when I found out that I had leukemia and I told my children, they started sending me stuff on the internet because they have computers that I bought for them. And not just one computer, I said computers, because they become obsolete every 3 days. At least that's the way it feels to me. Dad, I've had this thing since June. I said, but it's only October. Yes, but you can't imagine how many changes have taken place. I need a new one. But anyway, they said, with great loving hearts, sent me the information on this kind of leukemia that I have, and everywhere it says in there that it's incurable. That's what it says. It's incurable. You have to this, that, and the other thing. And it's just not a concept that I can embrace or I know about. But on the other hand, I also know that life is incurable. You know, that basically life is really a sexually transmitted, terminal disease. That's how we all got here, and it's terminal, folks. So it's not like I'm looking for something that's going to get me past, the way that we all leave. But on the other hand, to me, enlightenment is never really about, complaining about the storms. It's learning to dance in the rain, isn't it? And to sing in the rain, and to just be able to say, this is another day, thank you. I was out there this morning, 5:30 this morning, looking out at that ocean, saying thank you. A half a century later, So that elevating our lives means changing some of the fundamental things that we have come to believe are true. I was at a workshop not too long ago, 20-some years ago now, and I think about it, and They ask everybody at the workshop to write their biography of their life. But they limited it so it didn't get too long and too wordy to 5 3x5 cards, 5 chapters. Write your life out in 5 chapters. Chapter 1, 2, where you have been in your life. And this lady that was in the room, her name was Portia Nelson, wrote these words. These were the 5 chapters, and I just loved it so much that I recorded it. It was recorded, and I jotted them down. Portia Nelson, chapter 1 of my life. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. And it takes a long time to find a way out. Chapter 2 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault, and it still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. But it is my fault. I know where I am, and I get out immediately. Chapter 4 of my life. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Isn't that great? Portia Nelson. So, 3 little quotes that I jotted down. In order to produce something that is greater than oneself, one has to go out from oneself, rise above oneself, detach oneself, and enter higher regions so as to capture elements from these regions. 2, to make the transition from the ordinary level of consciousness to the level of superconsciousness involves such a fundamental renewal, such a dramatic change of personality, that few are prepared to make such a commitment to the fulfillment of their own dharma. These are my quotes. And number 3, if you refuse to accept responsibility for the incarnation of a new and higher concept of yourself, then you reject the means, the only means whereby the attainment of your ideals can be effected. If you're willing to accept responsibility for a newer and higher concept of yourself in this incarnation, in this lifetime, if you're not willing to do that, you reject all means possible for doing it. If you're willing to say, and I'm going to ask you to do this, this is the culmination, what I will be heading towards here, a concept of yourself that is radically different than anything you've ever experienced before. Back in 1978, I was 38 years old. I had 2 books that were topping the bestseller lists all over the world. One was Your Erroneous Zones, and the other was Pulling Your Own Strings. And because of those 2 books, I was invited to participate in a 1-week-long university in Vienna, Austria, by an organization called YPO. Young Presidents Organization. Presidents of corporations with, I think, 500 or more employees who come to these universities and have people from all over the world who are supposedly experts in their field present these universities. They had people from political, Walter Mondale was one of the speakers there that I was with. He was the Vice President of the United States at that time. People from all fields of business, education, social work, and so on were there. And when I got there, I was invited to be on a panel, not because I knew so much and that I was worthy of being in this company, although at that time I thought I was, but because I was well known, because I was on the Johnny Carson show every 3 weeks and things like that. So I got there, and they put me on a panel. And the first panelist that was on there was a woman named Virginia Satir. Virginia Satir was a very famous family conjoint therapist and someone I had studied in my doctoral studies 8 years before that. And I was very honored to be on the program with her and to meet her. But the other person on the panel, it just blew me away because I didn't think I belonged in the same room or even the same city with him. He was someone that we had studied. I had read all of his books. We used his textbooks at the university, and I was deeply and profoundly moved by his writings. His name was Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl in the 1930s was a Jewish psychiatrist who one day the Nazis knocked on his door, and he was just taken to Auschwitz in Poland and put into a concentration camp and lived there until 1945. I shouldn't say lived there, survived there until 1945, under some of the most horrific conditions that you could ever imagine. And I just was in awe that I was on the same panel with him. I couldn't speak. I was touched profoundly by his story. And his story was one of survival. He had written a book, which you should all read, called Man's Search. And he would tell in there that the reason that he had survived was because he knew he had to tell this story. Some of you know that I had traveled with 2.5 years or so with a woman from the Rwandan Holocaust in 1994, Immaculée Ilibagiza, who wrote an astonishing book called Left to Tell, a survival story akin to Viktor Frankl's. I had told her about Viktor Frankl, and she went out and read it, but her story also was just mind-blowing. She was hid in a bathroom with 7 other women. She was a Tutsi, and they had slaughtered 1 million people in 90 days. 1 million people in 1994. More than we could even imagine in a country the size of the state of Maryland. And they were mostly all just macheted to death, all the Tutsis by the Hutus. It was this horrible crisis that was taking place in the world. And she was a survivor, and only a handful did survive of the Tutsi women. But anyway, Dr. Frankl was telling the story on this panel of they would bring him a bowl of dirty water and a floating fish head in the water. And that would be his meal for the day. And he said to me, and when he told the story, he said he had to change his conception of himself and what he had come to believe was true. He said that he had to find beauty in this floating fish head, and the people who couldn't do that couldn't survive. The people who said we shouldn't be there, this is wrong, it's awful, and so on, and we shouldn't be treated this way, and filled their hearts with rage and anger and hatred, invariably wouldn't survive. It was those, and he said these words to me as we went to lunch after this panel. He said, Wayne, he said, you're a young man. He said, get this. He said, when you are confronted with a situation over which you have no control, and it will happen a lot in your life, he said, we are ultimately challenged to change ourselves. And if we can't change ourselves and what we have come to believe to be true, we will not survive. I knew I had to survive in order to tell this story about meaning in our lives. And so, where we have come to here at this time in our life, there is a crisis in our world. A crisis, I'm going to ask us to look first of all for a few moments at collectively what we have to do to change our conception of ourselves. And then I'm going to wrap it up with what we can do to change our perceptions of ourselves individually. Because ultimately, all of us have within us a higher self. A self that is like it's a piece of God that we all are. And there's a little spark, a little fragment of God, the place that we originated from, that is within us. And this little fragment, this little piece of God, it's one of the teachings that I have embraced by the ascended masters. And one of the things they say, this is called the science of the white brotherhood, or the initiate science. And this is not white skin, this is white light. The Creator has planted within every creature a fragment of himself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature as himself. And thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. This is what I'm challenging you to look at here this morning. That you have within you, not something outside of you, but within you, God. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external source, human beings can work inwardly by means of their thought, their will, and their spirit to obtain the nourishing, the healing elements that they need. This is why the teaching I bring you is of the Spirit of the Creator and not of matter or creation. That you have within you a spark of God. One other thing that they say that profoundly touched me, and I've read it to many audiences. Our higher self is perfect, omniscient, and almighty, a fragment of God himself, a pure, transparent, luminescent quintessence. That's what we are. He said the only problem in getting to this higher self of ours to act as and know how to make him want what we want, it's a problem that can reach tragic proportions in our lives. How can we spark the goodwill of this being, this higher self, this God, this fragment of God within us, who is far above us and whom we represent so inadequately here on earth? He says the only way he begins to notice us and give us his attention is when we finally decide that we truly want to get to know him or her. And that's what has happened to me, is that I went to a place within myself that said, I know that there is something within me that is almighty, that is all-knowing, that is all-powerful. It's where I came from, and I must be like what I came from. And I know that within me is this power to be able to manifest and attract virtually anything I place my attention on, because I am a piece of God. God is one of the memes that all of us have been handed, is that God is something external to ourselves. It is something outside of us that will only give us its attention when we give it the right amount of money or when we go to the right spiritual place. You know, when the Sufis used to say, if you don't have a temple in your heart, you'll never find your heart in a temple. And it's about having a temple in your heart. And that God isn't some white dead male floating around in heaven like a cosmic bellboy offering us whatever it can give us if we do the proper things, if we pay it our indulgences, if we go to the right services and so on. That this is a meme that we have been handed, and this handing of this meme to us, this idea, this mind virus, this virus that keeps duplicating and infiltrating and spreading in our lives, until we get to a point where we decide, I came from God. I didn't even come from my parents. Quantum physics teaches us that. I came from a source that is higher and greater than, and it's moving the pieces around, and I'm not just going to align with it, I'm going to become it. It is going to be me. I am going to be it. But before I get there, because once you get this and understand it and grasp it, it becomes so all-encompassing and so all-powerful in your lives that there are no more surprises. Synchronicity doesn't become just a clever term invented by one of my great teachers, Carl Jung, which sort of creates like we have within us this ability to have a collaboration with fate almost. It's not like that. You become it becomes you. And it even has a name, and I'm going to talk about that name and how you can make it work. But what happened to me about a year and a half ago really transformed my life. Before that, magical things started showing up in my life. I turned 65 on May the 10th, 2005. And the day after that, on the 11th of May, I gave up everything I had. I had my secretary, Maya, who's here on this cruise. You'll meet her at the bookstores and so on. She's been with me for 33 years now, I think. I called her up and I said, there's 20,000 plus books in this office of mine. There's records of all kinds. There's clothing in here. There's appliances. There's furniture. I said, I'm letting it all go. I've been called to do something else. And she went out and got rid of everything, gave it all away. All these beautiful clothes and so on. Took them to homeless people living under the bridges in South Florida. And emptied the place, and then I said, sell the place to the first person who wants it. And someone came along who needed it. It was near a hospital, someone who needed to be close to a hospital, and practically gave it away. And I said, and give the money for it to my wife, to my ex-wife, whatever she is, my wife, my ex-wife, partner, whatever. And I went to Maui, and I was called to live something called the Tao, T-A-O. The Tao means the Great Way in ancient Chinese. There's a small book of 81 verses called the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching translates to Tao, T-A-O, the Great Way. T-E translates to the virtue of. Ching means book, the book of living the virtue of the Great Way. Some call it the wisest book ever written. There's 81 verses, and I took an entire year, the year of 2006, and I wrote an essay on each one of those 81 verses after living and practicing and meditating on and swallowing and endorsing and memorizing each verse of the Tao Te Ching. And then after 4.5 days, I would sit down and it wrote itself through me. I have a painting of Lao Tzu that was given to me by an artist in New York who heard me on my radio show and sent it to me. And Lao Tzu just spoke to me, and I just let it come, just like I'm letting it come now. It just came. And that's really what writing is for me, and that's what speaking is for me. It's realizing that God writes all the books and delivers all the speeches and builds all the bridges, and we're just instruments. And once we get our egos out of the way, and what is our ego? Edging God out. The ego is the part of us that believes that who we are is what we have and what we do and what other people think of us. That who we are is separate from each other and separate from God. And it's the false self. First 9 months of your life in your mother's womb, there was nothing for you to do. The Tao says you're doing nothing. You're just being done. You must know that about your body. You certainly wouldn't let it get to where it is now if you were in charge of it. It's just doing what it does. The Tao also says that the Tao does nothing, but it leaves nothing undone. You can't find God. You can't get a hold of it. God is invisible for a reason. Because the thing that you need to know to reach your highest place is something called faith. To believe in that which doesn't exist. To passionately believe in what doesn't exist, said Nikos Kazantzakis, the great novelist from Greece who wrote Zorba the Greek, is to passionately believe in that which doesn't exist. That's how you create it. Faith. And so the Tao Te Ching, I wrote a book called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, and it's a book that's based on the Tao. I put my own version of the Tao together. It's called Living the Wisdom of the Tao. I don't ask you to read this. I ask you to carry it with you. Wherever you go, just take it with you. Put it in your purse. Put it in your glove box. Just carry it with you, because the energy from what's in here will literally transform your life. And anytime you need something, just reach in there, and there it is. Everything that you need. You've all heard it said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with what? A single step. That's out of the Tao. That's the great wisdom of this. And I had such a year that taught me to go from ego to trusting and knowing that I am God. and God is within me. Practicing radical humility instead of ego. There's a great poet from India. His name was Rabindranath Tagore. Here he speaks about the ego. I went out alone on my way to my tryst, but who is this me in the dark? I step aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word I utter. He is my own little self, my Lord. He knows no shame. But I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. That gives me goosebumps, that kind of poetry. Hi, sweetheart, do you have this? No, you do. Enjoy it. Nice to see you. Take the Tao with you. Carry it with you. It has great and powerful wisdom built inside of it. But in order to change our concept of ourselves and change what we come to believe is true about ourselves, to change the idea that we can heal ourselves. 18 months ago, I was at a doctor's office, and he came out and he said, sit down. He said, I've got something to tell you. And I said, this is not good news. He said, based on all of the markers that have shown up in your blood work, you have leukemia. I said, you probably got the wrong markers, the wrong blood there. You probably take some more because I don't do leukemia. He said, no, it's definite. It's not there's no question there. So I received that news like one more obstacle in my life, but at the moment that I received it, it took the breath out of me, almost like when my wife had talked to me 10 years before and said what she said. And I went back to my home on Kaanapali Beach in Maui. Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate you buying that for me. That was... I didn't quite know what to do. I didn't know what that meant, didn't know much about it, and didn't know who to tell, whether I wanted to keep it to myself. Do I make this public? And I walked out of my apartment, and I normally turn right. No, I normally turn left. That's the direction I go. When I get to the ocean, I usually go left. But this day I decided to turn right. And sitting on the grass were two ladies who had come to Maui to meet with me, even though I wasn't planning to meet with them. They had sent me a message of some kind that they were doctors, nurse practitioners, and nurse practitioners practice medicine and write prescriptions and do all the works that doctors do. And they stopped me and said, Pam was one of them, and Kim was the other. And Pam said, we use your work in our work. We practice an integrative approach to medicine, not just medicine, but anything at all that will help a human being, whether it's chiropractic, whether it's massage, whether it's crystals, you know. And I've always believed what Talopa said: if you have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing, and if you tell me that crystals are going to heal my hemorrhoids, I'm buying crystal chairs and sitting my ass on it. I don't have any problem with that at all. You know? That'll be fine. I'll just sit right here if it works, you know, and because I know about placebos and I know how strong the mind is, and if you start believing that this sugar water is going to heal you of your arthritis and all of a sudden your knee works, you know, you don't care what's in it. So they started talking to me, but I really wasn't in the mood to talk to them about why they had come there, which was because they had been using my books and my work and my tapes and my CDs with their patients and were finding great results. So I said, excuse, now finally I just was emotional about this whole thing. I hadn't even told my family yet. And Pam said to me, she said, I didn't come here all the way to Maui to talk to you about incorporating your work into our practice. She said, I came here to help you to deal with your leukemia. This does not have to be life-threatening to you at all. And I liked what she said. And I talked to her for an hour and a half, and the truth of it is she saved my life. Unbeknownst to me, she had self-published a book about something called the APOE gene diet, and that there is a genetic blueprint that each and every one of us have, but you don't find it out normally unless you get unless you're tested for it. And this APO gene test tells you that if you are of a certain genetic predisposition, then there are certain kinds of nutritional habits that you have to develop. And if you're of this type and you're eating this way and your body cannot process the food in the way that it will lead to disease. There's nothing that you can do about it. And that there are things that are taking place in our society, like this is the first generation in the history of America in which the children being born today have a shorter life expectancy by 2 years than their own parents. It's the first time it's ever happened that children being born today live less than their parents. That 1 out of 3 children in our society is suffering severely from morbid obesity or on their way to it. That by the year 2040, when I turn 100, and I'll be on one of these cruises, 1 out of 3 people in the world will have diabetes. In the year 1970, 1 generation ago, there were 2 billion prescription pills consumed, individual pills consumed in the United States. 2 billion. It's a lot of pills. In 2007, a generation later, that number is 113 billion in 1 generation. We have people eating foods that have been genetically modified because for greed and corporate profit making, Monsanto particularly. We have people, one of my daughter Tracy's best friend Kim had insomnia, and he went to a general practitioner and they gave him a prescription for Zoloft, right? Pardon? Oh, Kim's husband, yes. But it was Zoloft, right? Yeah. So I'm supposed to not say those things, but that's what it was. And he was told to take Zoloft for his insomnia, and then after 3 weeks, he felt like his head was coming off. He couldn't do it. He just couldn't focus. My teacher in India told me that if you have insomnia, go outside and walk on the grass in bare feet for 5 minutes and connect to the earth, and you will go back and go to sleep. Reconnect to the earth. My teacher in India said that if you wear shoes everywhere you go, the whole world feels like leather. And that's why I don't wear shoes. I live in Maui. When you walk into someone's home in Maui, you take your shoes off. Everywhere I go without shoes on. But he was given Zoloft. And this Zoloft, after 3 weeks being on it, he called it his general practitioner. He said, try it for 6 weeks. That's the testing time. If you can get through that 6-week period, you'll be okay. And she came home one day, and he had hanged himself. And that's not just an isolated example. And if you don't believe it, look on his website. His name was Woody. And she started a website called woodymatters.com. And she testifies in Congress now to get some of these drugs, at least to get some warning labels put on them, because suicide rates are dramatically up, and we are giving prescription drugs that are more powerful than the street heroin that people were injecting into themselves, these OxyContins and so on. They're so strong. and we're passing them out almost like they're candy. Did you see the story in USA Today 2 days ago? The top general in the United States, Lieutenant General, 5.5 years has been addicted to painkillers. Addicted to them, and said that 30% of the soldiers are taking painkillers, and how could they not? They're being asked to go over there and become murderers, to kill, and the pain is so great, and any of them, they get wounded, and they get hooked on these drugs that are so strong, and that's just a minor part of it. It is the number of people on Alzheimer's has increased dramatically. It's an epidemic in our country. Autism is on the rise dramatically in our country. Diabetes, heart disease, obesity, all of these, and all of them are alterable by changing around and understanding what is your genetic blueprint and how should you change your diet. And Pam put me on a new diet, took my blood and tested it, flew back out to Maui to interpret it for me, went with me and showed me step by step, this is what you have to do to change, and I changed it. I started eating in a different way than I've ever eaten before. And the last blood test that I have, 2 of the markers for chronic lymphocytic leukemia have returned to normal. Everything else is returning back to normal, and leukemia is going to be a memory for me. Thank you. Now she's helping my brother Dave with his Parkinson's disease and has helped so many people that I know. She had written this book. It's called The Perfect Gene Diet. I'll tell you a little bit about it. Well, you know what? Instead of me telling you about it, I wrote the foreword to it because it changed my life, and it can change yours. And I really think you need to read this book. But you know what? Pam's here. She's on this cruise, and she's going to talk to you for 5 minutes. And you're going to be able to then be with her on this cruise for this whole time, and she's going to change some lives in this room. I'm telling you, look at this body. Does this look like a leukemia body? There's no chance. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, my doctor, the woman who changed and saved my life, Pam McDonald. Come on up here, Pam. She's 94 years old. You're not going to believe how great she looks. Look at this, 94. You are so beautiful.
Hi, how are you doing? This is my first cruise, and I feel a little drunk all the time. But I can't drink, and I don't drink, so this is a good feeling for me. Meeting Dr. Dyer on that day was pretty much amazing. And I think working with him has given me some amazing experiences. I'm one of the new Hay House authors. I feel like I'm in kindergarten, and I'm learning very, very quickly because I have a very good teacher. I've been working with him and listening to him lecture, and he got a book published that I had published myself, and wow, landing in Hay House and having this message go out, I am so grateful. But I think I have a mission. The day I was born, my grandfather was diagnosed with heart disease, and my mother left. And I really didn't think about that until I was older. And I think I had an agreement in heaven with her that she would have me and then leave, because I'm pretty independent. I'm English. I was born in Scotland. I have that Braveheart personality underneath the shy English girl, who now is no longer shy. Dr. Wayne has changed that. But I have a mission, and I think my mission is to reverse heart disease and also to support, prevent, and reverse Alzheimer's disease. And I had a great experience at 9 years old where my grandfather died of heart disease, and I witnessed it. And I think there's nothing else really that can teach you more than actually the physical conscious contact of seeing somebody you love die of a disease. And I think that's why I'm working with heart disease and Alzheimer's disease. But I went into nursing in 1979, first day of nursing. I was welcomed. I went to the Royal Hospital St. Bartholomew's. It was opened in 1123 and has been open for every day since. It's almost 900 years old. That's where the circulation of the blood was founded by William Harvey. And I walk into this ward, and I'm presented with this matron who says, "Good morning, Nurse MacDonald. Welcome to Colston Ward. This is a Crohn's disease ward." And she says, shows me around this ward very quickly and shows me to the sluice at the back of the ward and gives me a job. She says, "I have a job for you. You have 200 bedpans. And I want you to describe and write down the contents of these bedpans." And about bedpan 40, I look up to God and I said, "Why did you give me this job?" And 2004, I got my answer. He's not quick all the time. And I had opened my own practice, and I was working with this APOE gene that I'm working with, and UCSF, University of San Francisco, gastroenterology department started sending me Crohn's disease patients. And as they're giving me histories and they're telling me about their poop, I'm remembering the bedpans. And about patient 7, I'm like, oh my goodness, that is why he gave me that job. Because I could see in the bedpan, and I had physical conscious contact of what comes out of a human body when they eat a terrible British diet, and they get an inflammatory colon. So I learned that nutrition really does matter. So when I was working in primary care, and I was presented with a heart disease patient who had a very strong family history of heart disease. He was doing all the right things, following the Heart Association, Dean Ornish, Covert-Bailey, eating the low-fat diet that we all got told about. And he had a heart disease, he had a screening cholesterol test that was completely normal. And I know that because he brought his Excel spreadsheet in, and I could see screening lipid panel, normal, 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 normal throughout the years. But he said to his primary care provider, who's a colleague of mine, "Do I really have heart disease? Can you tell me for sure that inside my arteries I do not have plaque that's going to rupture and give me a heart attack?" And he said, "You know what? There's a test that you can go get. It's called a heart scan. And it'll tell you whether you have heart disease or not. But you don't have heart disease. You do not have heart disease. Look at your screening cholesterol tests. They're normal. And you're a runner. You're a triathlete. You eat a low-fat diet. You're doing the work." So we went and got the heart scan, and it came back positive. Very positive. Now, I had an invested interest in this patient because this patient was my husband. I couldn't save my grandfather, but when he was sitting on the bed, crying, looking at me, saying to me, "Am I going to die?" I'm like, not on my shift, because I am an integrative medicine trained nurse practitioner. Dr. Andrew Wild taught me about nutrition. I went to 3 nurse practitioner programs. I am interested in nutrition. I'm a runner myself. You're not dying on my shift. Besides, I've got 3 kids and I need you. So I got off of work for 3 weeks and I went and researched. I actually asked the question, what is heart disease? And I found that 80% of heart disease is genetic. There's a genetic component to heart disease, and we have 13 different types of cholesterol. Heart disease is an inflammatory disease, just like Crohn's disease in the gut. And diet really matters. Now, we all have this gene called the APOE gene. The APOE gene transports fat and cholesterol in the body. Now, I asked all my colleagues, did you know that we had 13 different types of cholesterol? And not one knew about it. I'm like, okay, I went to school. I went to lots of school. And I know you went to school because you're a cardiologist. And I know you went to school because you're an internal medicine doctor or a primary care doctor. Why is it that we don't know this? Well, genetics is new. And so the APOE gene is not known. Everybody in this room has an APOE gene. And at least 1/3 of you has an abnormal one that's going to put you at least at 60% of having Alzheimer's disease or 90% of having Alzheimer's disease. But if you eat a gene-supportive environment, you will not express that disease. And that's not a message that primary care medicine teaches you. It teaches you that if you have a disease, take a pill. But I can tell you, and Dr. Dyer is an example, that you can regress the most deepest inflammatory disease, which is cancer, which is multiple system failures at multiple levels, and you can reverse it. You can reverse cancer. I know that because I've seen it, and you are seeing it now. You're witnessing this. Heart disease is reversible. Crohn's disease is reversible. And I know, because I have seen it with my own eyes, that Alzheimer's disease is reversible.
How many people in this room, yeah, thank you. How many people in this room have either family members or close friends in the Alzheimer's category? How many people? Look around, it's half the audience.
It's reversible.
And do these people have to, are they determined that they're destined to walk into closets and ultimately just not find their way out?
With my clinical experience, what I've seen with my own eyes, it is not your destiny. No, it is not.
Yeah. That's the message that we can talk about changing what you believe to be true. We have to begin to change what we believe to be true, not only about what we eat, but about our ability to change our genetics. And that's a big part of this idea that we're stuck with what it is that we have to have that and nothing can be done about it. We can change it all. It all is reversible. And changing that diet around is not like you have to eat, sawdust and things like that. It's a very pleasant, easy way to live. It's just a shift. And she details it greatly in this wonderful book that I wrote the foreword to, The Perfect Gene Diet. Get the test, find out more about it. Talk to Pam on the cruise. I think you're going to be giving a little talk here, aren't you?
Yeah.
What is this?
I don't have my glasses, so I can't read
Oh,
it.
Sunday and Wednesday. Well, I can help you with that, with your eyesight, because mine's perfect. Sunday and Wednesday, 1 to 3, at the Hudson Meeting Room. Pam's going to be speaking if you want to know more about it. Who in this room has diabetes? And who would like to change it? Would you like to change it? Come on up here. Would you like a copy of this? Here you go. God bless you, sweetheart. It's all yours. Thanks, Pam. See you later. 1 to 3, Sunday and Wednesday, Hudson Meeting Room. One other book that I bring that isn't mine, that someone else wrote, who's a dear friend, but Marianne Williamson started writing to Oprah letters about her weight loss. And this is the culmination of that. Oprah put it on as one of her favorite things in her movie, My Favorite Things. 21 Spiritual Lessons for Surrendering Your Weight Forever. I have a friend on Maui who started on this program, just this, a spiritual approach to losing her weight, and took off 31 pounds in about 40 days. So who in here wants to lose, wait a minute, who wants to lose 50 pounds? Literally, who in the room wants 50 pounds? Would you like to lose 50 pounds? Come on up here. You start on this program, a course in weight loss. I think we brought about 50 of them on the boat. I read this whole thing, and I don't even need to lose weight, and it just knocked me out. So that's for you, 50 pounds lighter. Thank you. God bless you. Enjoy it. Okay, so what I have been leading up to is now here. A radical shift within ourselves to move us from ordinary levels of consciousness to super levels of consciousness. To have a knowing within you, there's something that you have to change about your concept of yourself. Your concept of yourself is what? Everything that you believe to be true. Are you willing to change what you have come to believe and have enforced with your parents, with their parents and their parents, with your education, with your religious training, with your cultural training? You have to be willing to let it all go, to put it in the past. That was then, this is now. Everything that you were at one time is no longer what you have to be. That's why I bring Pam with me on the cruise and ask her to talk to you. And that's why what I'm about to talk to you about in the last 30 minutes or so that we have was the most mind-blowing thing of my life. It's a new awareness. And this new awareness, and awareness is an interesting subject. Like right now, how do we define awareness? So here's what I want you to do. Right now, I would like you to become aware of your breath, of your breathing. Just become aware of it. Just notice it. Now, 5 minutes ago, you were breathing just like you are now, and you had no awareness of it. Now you have awareness of it. What is the awareness? What this is where you decide to place your attention. So within each and every one of us, I have been studying 3 great teachers. One of them is a man named Neville Goddard. I'm writing a book about the teachings of this. This is a book called The Power of Awareness that I gave to every one of my children for Christmas 2 years ago. And I asked them to read it, study it, because I have read it now 7 times, cover to cover. I'm not even asking you to read it. It's hard. You have to look at every paragraph, and there's such incredible wisdom in each paragraph, but it's very hard to remember. It's esoteric, it's tough stuff. And they would call me up and say, Dad, that's a great book, but I read one paragraph, and I really know that he's right, but I'm not quite sure what to do with it or how it works. And I'm writing a book on this now, taking some of his teachings to try to put it into, he passed away in 1972, in a book that'll be coming out with Hay House in the future called Wishes Fulfilled, and it'll have a CD with it, which is a meditation guide for manifesting what you want in your life. I'll share a little bit about this with you. I've also been studying and involved in and organized my life around a book called 3 Magic Words by U.S. Anderson, and I'll share a little bit of that with you here. But I received this little book, and I get lots of books, probably 100 or so a month, and manuscripts and so on that people send to me. And most of the time I can just skim them and pass them along to hospitals and prisons and wherever else they need books, because I just can't read them all. But this one, for some reason, came to me with this little note. It came to the yoga studio where I was practicing, but since this leukemia, I've had to sort of alter my yoga practice a bit. The heat, I was doing Bikram yoga, and the heat and the leukemia didn't seem to mix, although that's changing because the leukemia is just about gone. And it was wrapped up in a little piece of gold foil, and it said, this gift of gold is a pearl of the highest wisdom on the planet, handed down from the ethers, from the octaves of light. If taken up and used and made as a living flame within oneself, it will lead them into the ascension at the close of this embodiment. With sincere love and gratitude for all the raising of vibrations you have done for mankind, for the earth, and for all of the beings on the planet. Carol Jacobs, she sent this to me. So I thought, wow, that's quite an endorsement, but I still didn't open it. And this is the book. It's called the I Am Discourses. And this is the challenge that Viktor Frankl said to me: when you are confronted with situations over which you have no control, and that's pretty much life, and the things that your children do, and the things that are happening in the world, and people blowing themselves up, and all of the kinds of things about it, there's little we can do about that, but we can change our awareness. And we can begin to understand what this teaching was about, and it's called the I Am Discourses. And I kept looking at it. I would eat my meals, I would sit it there, and finally I opened it up and I read the letter and I said, all right. And I started skimming through it, and I thought, oh, it's kind of fascinating. I'll read the first one. There's 33 of these discourses in here. And I read the first one, and I called my wife and I told her about it, and then I read the next one, and I told my kids about it, and before you knew it, I decided to read the whole thing and underline it and make it a part of my life. And it transformed my life completely. I'm going to just share a little bit of the I Am Discourses. I don't need these glasses, Pam, but this is very small print. So, this word, I am, what does it mean? Life in all of its activities, everywhere manifest, is God in action. And it is only through lack of the understanding of applied thought and feeling that mankind is constantly interrupting the pure flow of that perfect essence of life, which would, without interference, naturally express its perfection everywhere. I believe this to be true. I know this to be true. The first 9 months of your life, there was nothing for you to do. Mother can't do anything. very little can be done. It's just an unknown, unseen, birthless, deathless, changeless energy that is allowing everything to take place and create this perfect being growing inside of us. Nothing for us to do. And that's what that paragraph means. The problem is that once the child is born, we take it out and we look at it and we say, that's such great work, God, my God. We'll take over from here. And in the process of taking over from here, we forget that everything that it needed for its entire journey, not just the first 9 months, was already built into it. But we start interfering, and that's why the Tao was so meaningful to me, because the Tao practices non-interference. And non-interference is that awareness that the anchor of the universe is in every one of us, and including all of our children. I love to tell the story recently of my grandson was visiting me in Hawaii, and my friend Carrie and her 2 little girls were at the pool. And it was Kylie, Kamiley, and Carter, my grandson. He calls me Bampa. And there's 4, 5, 6, whatever they were. They're just tiny little kids. And Carrie said, well, you know, my girls are bickering, they fight, and they're going to give you a hard time. Are you going to be able to watch them? I said, I had 8 kids. I think I can handle 3 kids at the pool for a couple of hours. You just don't want them to drown, right? Isn't that basically all I have to do? I mean, I'm not going to give them lessons in psychology or philosophy. They're not going to drown. I won't let them drown. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you don't understand what my kids are like. I mean, they're always fighting, and I said, it's okay. Go shopping. Come back, and they'll be fine. So she's gone 15 minutes, and they're out in the pool, and all of a sudden, Kamiley comes running at me. Kylie pushed me, Kylie pushed me, Kylie was splashing at me, Kylie was this and all of that. She's screaming, and I stopped, I put my hand up, I said, whoa, honey, Kamiley, please. I'm a Taoist master. I practice non-interference. You're not drowning, right? No, but she put that. She locked. Couldn't get my attention, went away. 10 minutes later or less, her sister comes running at me. You don't understand, your grandson, he is so mean. He's so mean. He actually pushed me into the water. I said, Kylie, try to imagine how little I care. But I just don't care. She went back. 2 minutes later, Carter's coming running at me, bumpa, 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 and he looks at me and he knows me well enough to know. He goes, he doesn't. And there were my experience. And that was it. For the next 2.5 hours, they'd look over, nah, he doesn't care. And they'd be gone. Non-interference, practicing non-interference. So this little book was so instrumental, taught me so much. It was like, I am, it says, is the full activity of God. Having placed before you so often the truth of God in action, I wish you to understand its first expression in individualization. The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either is spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is, I am. These 2 words put together are the 2 most powerful words in the world, because this is the great secret that I'm asking you to change all of the thoughts that you have had, all of the cultural conditioning, all of the education, all of your religious training. I'm asking you to just toss it out the window and begin to realize the words I am and what they truly mean. The student endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws must stand guard more strictly over his thought and expression, in word or otherwise. For every time you say, I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling the great presence within you. The great presence within you, The great presence within you is God. You are all pieces of God. The problem is that you have just what my teacher, the initiate science teacher from Bulgaria that I was reading to you from, and that book that's out of print, was saying is that the Creator has placed within you a spark of God. A spark, let's say you weigh 140 pounds. If you weigh 140 pounds, a spark weighs about 1/100 of an ounce. That's how much of God is in you that you have come to believe in and rely upon and use to manifest and attract what you want for yourself in your life. You're trying to use a 1/100 of 1% of who you are to activate and create and align yourself with an energy that is all-knowing, all-powerful, almighty. You, each and every one of you. This is who you are. But more than that, you're not just pieces of God. You're not just a spark of God. You are God. And this flies in the face. Blasphemy, I can hear people right away saying, oh my God, I'm glad he's not given this in Alabama. The assumption there being that God is, when I speak of God, I don't speak of the God that we've created, this God of special favors, this God that has the capacity to heal but withholds it from us, this God who is better than some and like some people better than others, this God who, if you give it money, it will give you dispensation from your sins. You can buy indulgences with it. Not that God. That's a God of the ego, a God that's just like us. A God that thinks that some people are better than others, some people are stronger than others, some people deserve to be healed, some people don't. That's not the God I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about a different God altogether. I just married my daughter, Sky, who sings at many of my seminars and on my PBS shows, last Saturday in Miami. I know. They know I didn't marry my daughter, okay? They don't have to be told that, honestly. This isn't kindergarten. I officiated at this ceremony to keep my daughter Tracy happy, all right? And in the ceremony, I said, we are not gathered here to celebrate a marriage necessarily, because in a marriage there are many roles. One of you will assume the responsibilities of finances, and one will take care of the shopping, and another will have to pay the bills, and another will work, and when the children come, you'll do this, and many, many roles. But in a spiritual partnership, which we are here to celebrate, there's only one role. In a spiritual partnership, the role is to assist your partner in reaching God realization, reaching the highest place that they came here to become. That's all you have to do. As Hafiz, the great Sufi poet, put it, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Just think what a love like that can do. It lights up the whole world. May you light up each other's world with that kind of love, which was my ceremony to them. And this idea of this, now I know there's Christians in the room and watching, and there's Jews in the room watching, and there's Muslims watching. So let me just bring you all in, okay? So you don't get nervous, all right? And let's go back. Let me take you back, because this is the Bible. And in the Bible, the first 5 verses of the Bible, the Old Testament, are called what? The Torah, of course. And in the Torah, the holy book that so many people believe is what they ought to guide their life by, here is Moses out there wandering around in the desert. Now I told you that Lao Tzu came 500 years before the birth of Christ. 500, that's 5 centuries. Lao Tzu, then along came Jesus 500 years later. The Torah was written 800 years before Lao Tzu, 1,300 years ago, perhaps the oldest spiritual teaching on the planet. And Moses is out in the desert, and he sees a bush a burning bush that doesn't disintegrate. It just keeps burning and burning. But the bush is still there. And this is God. And Moses is given the word on, he wants to know how to free the Israelites in Egypt. How can we free them? How can we free? That's what his mission is. And he says to this burning bush, which is God, symbolized in God. Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the great English poet, had a wonderful little poem about that experience. She said, "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every burning bush afire with God. And those who truly know take off their shoes." While the rest sit round and pick blackberries. That's what happened with Moses. He took off his shoes. Then Moses said to God, indeed, this is from Exodus 3:13. Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. I am that I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent you to me, has sent me to you. Moreover, God said to Moses, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. I am that I am. That's God. And every time you say it, I am, you defile it if you put anything that says, I am not. How could that which is the creator of all, to which we all are connected, to which we all came from, to which we will all return, how could it be anything other than I am? And then for the Christians, we come forward to the New Testament, and we look at John 8:58, and Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Now, it may not mean much to you, but when you read the I am discourses, you begin to realize that I am is God within you. In Joel, in the last books of the Old Testament, he says, let the weak man say, I am strong. You must figure out a way within yourself to grasp this notion that I am is the name of God, and every time you use it, you have within you the power the same power as the Creator. That's what the I am discourses are. And that's what the meditation is. I tell people, I want you to write down on a piece of paper everything that you would like to manifest or attract into your life. Just write it down. I would like to attract wealth. I would like to attract health. I would like to attract healing. I would like to attract the right person. I would like to attract a divine relationship. And put it down in these words. I am that. I am. I am that means I am, and then you put down. Now, every time you say I cannot, I am sick, I am unable, I am incompetent, I am sad, I am unhealthy, you have taken your destiny, your source, which is what you are. God says to Moses, I am that I am. Tell everyone, I am has sent you. And you have the capacity to say that within yourself. So when I'm reading Neville, the first chapter of Neville is called I Am. I am is the self-definition of the absolute. The foundation on which, this is the very first chapter, second page. The foundation on which everything else rests. I am is the first cause substance. I am is the self-definition of God. I am hath sent me unto you. I am that I am. Be still and know that I am God. Everything that Jesus said in the quotes in the New Testament begin with I am. I am the way, the truth, and the light. And he wasn't speaking about himself, this 33-year-old rabbi. He was speaking to all of us and saying, you have that within you. That's what you are. That's your birthright. That's where you came from, but you've forgotten it. And you have begun to use, instead of saying, I am health, I am the divine power within me, I am all that I would like to attract in my life. I tell people, when you do your meditation and you'd like to attract something into your life, you don't ask God for it. You are God. You insist upon it. You don't demand it with arrogance. You're God. You don't have to have any arrogance. You have within you the capacity, if you can keep reminding yourself that my teacher, one of the great teachers in India, Sai Baba, whose picture also is in my pocket, when in his 75th birthday in Puttaparthi in India, he had millions of devotees come there. And those millions of devotees stood around, and they had a camera there, and a reporter from the West said, are you God? Because he can manifest. He has the ability to attract vibhuti just from his consciousness. There's no time delay between his thoughts and materializing something into the world. Has the same gift of fish and loaves. You know, you think food and food appears. Even the least among you can do all that I have done, and even greater things. I am the way. Is it not written in your laws, said Jesus, that I have said, you are what? Gods. But we've been trained to believe that this is blasphemy, that God is an external subject, something outside of ourselves. How can you be anything? Who do you think you are? You were in a body this big. Muktananda said, that is real, which never changes. What part of you has never changed? You were in a body this big. You were in a body this big. You were in a body this big. You were in a body that did this, like all my little girls did. Yeah, what's this? You know? I wonder what all those people would think of Mr. Positive if they could see him here at our house. You know? You were in one of those bodies. You were in a 10-year-old body. You were in a 20-year-old body. You were in I was in a 40-year-old body. Was that body real? Was it real? If it was real, then go get it. It's gone. Everything that materializes dematerializes. The body that you walked into this room 2.5 hours ago is different than the one you're in now. It's gone. You can't get a hold of it. That is real, which never changes. And yet, there I was out on the balcony this morning, looking out at the ocean, 50 years later, remembering that 20-year-old body that was doing exactly the same thing. I could remember the waves looking the way they looked. I could remember the feeling of being on that, all of that. I had all of that, was all there. But I'm in a 70-year-old body now. It doesn't look anything like the one that was there 50 years ago. How come? Because that is real, which never changes. The part of you that is real is that invisible, birthless, changeless, deathless knowing within you. The I am that you are never changes. And that's where you have to live your life from. And that never, ever lets you down. You can't not get it if you get that you are. I'm going to read you just a little bit of this because it's too good to let you go. I am is a feeling of permanent awareness. The very center of consciousness is the feeling of I am. I may forget who I may forget who I am. I may forget where I am and what I am, but I cannot forget that I am. The awareness of being remains regardless of the degree of forgetfulness of who, where, and what I am. I am is that which amid unnumbered forms, which you've all been in, is ever the same. This great discovery of cause reveals that, good or bad, man is actually the arbiter of his own fate, and that it is his concept of himself that determines the world in which he lives. In other words, if you are experiencing ill health, knowing the truth about cause, you cannot attribute the illness to anything other than to the particular arrangement of the basic cause substance of an arrangement which is defined by your concept, I am unwell. This is why you are told, let the weak man say, I am strong, in Joel 3:10. For by his assumption, the cause I am is rearranged and must therefore manifest that which its rearrangement affirms. That's why I have to rewrite this so that you can get it, okay? This principle of governs every aspect of your life, be it social, financial, intellectual, or spiritual. I am is that reality to which, whatever happens, we must turn for an explanation of the phenomena of life. It is I am's concept of itself that determines the form and scenery of its existence. Everything depends upon its attitude toward itself. That which it will not affirm as true of itself cannot awaken in its world. If you can't affirm that I am well when you've been given a diagnosis of unwell, if you can't affirm that and put it into your mind and assume the feeling of that wish fulfilled within yourself, and whenever the subject matter comes up, you go to the place within your imagination where all things happen. Your imagination is the greatest gift that's ever been given to you. Everything that exists in the physical world was once imagined. So if you want something to exist in the physical world that doesn't exist, what do you have to do? You have to be able to imagine it. And then you have to live from the end. And what is the end? Where you have placed it in your imagination. That's why I have always, when I was a young doctoral student, Abraham Maslow was my teacher, and he said, you have to become independent of the good opinion of other people. You have to detach yourself from outcome. You have to not see and need and seek out and need the judgment or dominion of others, of anyone else. And you have to see the unfolding of God in everyone that you encounter. Everyone that you encounter. I had a teacher at Wayne State University in my doctoral years. The last seminar, his name was Fritz Radel. He wrote a book called Controls from Within. He was a colleague of Carl Jung and Freud. That's how old I am. This was in the 60s. These guys were in the 20s and 30s and 40s. They were in their 60s and 70s then. Fritz Radel had a seminar at the closing of our so amazing. My doctoral advisor, Dr. Mildred Peters, I just saw her. She's here. She was 70 in 1970, so I'm sure she's probably left this plane. But she pulled strings to get me into this seminar because it was done by lottery. But she once told me, you'll get in. I was her very favorite. Anyway, I could just feel her and see her. She was so beautiful. And anyway, we were in Dr. Radel's seminar, and it was on case studies. And he said, here's your midterm exam. And he walked into the class, little guy, bald, just like the Viennese accent, loved him. Brilliant, brilliant man. I was just honored again to just go to his seminar every Thursday. Never missed, ever. No one would dream of missing. It was so good. 3 hours just listening to a master. And he walked in, he said, here is your midterm exam. And he said, a self-actualized man arrives at a dinner party. And he's dressed different than everyone else. They're all in sort of semi-formal attire, dresses, suits, ties, tuxes, whatever. And he shows up with a pair of blue jeans on, a T-shirt, a baseball hat, and sneakers. What does he do? And he walked out of the room. He said, you have 15 minutes. This is your midterm. We all furiously wrote I remember writing that he wouldn't pay attention to it, he wouldn't let himself get upset about it, he's to be independent of the good opinion of other people. I had it all down. I mean, I just knew it, this stuff cold. I was the academic master at this stuff, all right? He walks back in and he says, okay, read your reactions, read your exams. So each one of us read what we said. He took his briefcase, I swear to you, just like this. He took his briefcase, he just went like, he went, you haven't learned a goddamn thing. And he walked out. True story. He came back in 5 minutes. We all knew because he already told us we had an A in the course. If all we had to do is just be there, we wouldn't have gotten in the seminar. If we were all advanced doctoral students, this was one of our last classes. And he smiled. He said, all you had to do is write 3 words. And he took out his chalk, and he got up, and there was a blackboard, a green board in the back, and he wrote, he wouldn't notice. You see how far you have to go? To change your concept of yourself? The self-actualized person, the God-realized person, the person who knows that I'm not just a spark of God, I'm moving that spark to a fragment, to a segment, to something the size of maybe a dime, then to a quarter, then to a silver dollar, then to a lemon, then to a grapefruit, and then to a soccer ball. So that inside of you, as Vivekananda put it, in the springtime, he said, go out and observe the blossoms on the fruit trees. He said, the blossoms vanish of themselves as the fruit grows. So too will the lower self vanish as the divine grows within you. It's letting the divine grow within you. It's letting, until you get to a point where you realize, I'm not just a piece of God. I'm such a mystery. There's such a part of me that I know is eternal. There's a part, I was out there watching the water there this morning from 50 years ago, and it's like, the body has changed, but who I am hasn't changed at all. I am doesn't change. I am is eternal. That's you. You've been granted the privilege of saying, I am. Why would you say, I am not? Why would you say, I can't? And it starts to become like a way of, Serena put on this wonderful thing for the little girls being trafficked in sex trade. And we get in the car, we're in Fort Lauderdale, and we have to drive to Miami. She holds it at 6 o'clock in Miami, in the rush hour. And I get into the car, and she's in the car, and my daughter Stephanie's in the car, my wife Marcy's in the car, Sky's in the car, and I'm in the car. These 4 women. And I get in. And all I hear is Marcy saying, oh my God, we're going to have to valet park. Is there anything valuable inside of here? Is there anything valuable? I want to take this out because you know how they steal things if we have to valet park. And there's no place to park. There's just there's just no place to park. There's no parking places. There's no lots. There's no valet. There's just no place to park. There's no parking lot. And I hear all of them going on and on about this. And I'm saying, we'll find a place to park. Yeah, you just say that. You just say you think you should, but there's just no place to park. I'm telling you, there's no place to park down there. I've lived down. I went to school at the University of Miami. I know what. There's no place to. I said, there'll be a place to park. We'll have a parking place when we get there. And we get off, and we're driving down and get through the traffic and the traffic. Good timing to do that. 6 o'clock on the phone. And we come up this little street, 42nd little avenue, right where, and there's a parking place right there. Just wide open. I mean, it's the only parking place wide open. Well, we better go back in there. I said, no, because Serena had to pee, and she had to get in there, and Sky had to, I have never had to pee so bad in my life, I can't. I said, well, I'll go pee. Just have it go do whatever you want. And we just drive back, and the space is still waiting for us. It's reserved. I reserved it. On the street, free, because I am parking. I am. Is that not a true story? True story. So I read this book, this incredible book. It's called Three Magic Words. Has anybody in here read Three Magic Words? Who's read Three Magic Words? Anybody? Nobody's read Three Magic Words? Where? Who is it? Stand up, sir. What are the three magic words? Pardon me? I can't hear you. Oh, you read it a long time ago. You wouldn't forget the three magic words. What are they? Yes. Uh-huh. The three magic words, I am God. I am God. Yes. Now listen. This book is, again, it's heavy. It's the kind of stuff I love because I am weird. But here's chapter 12. At the end of each chapter, there's a meditation. I did it every time. Those of you who've seen my 6 CD set called Making the Shift, there's a lot about that in there. They probably have these here. And here is the chapter 12. I mean, I studied this day in and day out for 30 days before I gave that seminar so I could really get this. And you know what? I've been using this and practicing this, who I am. And it's not anything that you have to go about and say, well, excuse me, I know that who you are, you're just a little piece of shit, but I am God. That's not it. You see the unfolding of God in everyone and everything that you encounter, everyone, which makes it impossible for you to have, I'll get to that in a second. No, I got to do that right now. How's my time? Oh, we got time. So, page 380 of the I Am Discourses. The student should constantly look within his human self and see what his habits or creations are there that need to be plucked out and disposed of. For only, and this is really important here, for only by refusing to any longer allow habits of judging, condemning, and criticizing to exist can he be free. The true activity of the student, which is me studying the I Am Discourses, the true activity of the student is only to perfect his own world, and he cannot do it as long as he sees imperfections in the world of any of God's children. You have to be able to see perfection in everyone and everything you encounter. And finally, I'm waiting for the three magic words. He doesn't tell you what they are until the last chapter. And the opening of the last chapter says this. This is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. You are God. If you will accept this towering truth and dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who peers from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self, capital S. You are not just a part of God, you are altogether God, and God is altogether you. And the conclusion of the power of awareness, last chapter, opening, called reverence. In all creation, in all eternity, in all the realms of your infinite being, the most wonderful fact is that which is stressed in the very first chapter of this book. You are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers and the prophets and the mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. This is the truth you can only know experientially. Because I said earlier, you do not learn this intellectually. You learn it through experience. I'd like you to take everything, if you will, please, off of your laps and put both feet on the floor. Preferably, if you can take your shoes off, even better, but not necessary. Okay? Nothing on your lap, nothing to impede you. And I want to close with a song. And the song is the story of a satori. an instant awakening. In the movie In the Shift, I speak, you'll see it, you can just watch it on Channel 38. It'll be playing throughout the week. The idea here is that you have a dharma. There is something to your life, and you can take and go from ordinary levels of consciousness to super consciousness, to the realization that you are God, which is a real big mind blower. You have to change what you've believed to be true and what you've been taught and accept this. You can do it in a moment, in an instant. It doesn't require a long time. It can happen in a moment. It happens in moments. It happened for me in a moment. I gave up alcohol 23 years ago in an instant of shame, but I gave it up. There was a man who was persecuting Christians. His name was Saul of Tarsus. And Saul of Tarsus was a murderer and hated Christians. And on his road to Damascus, he had an awakening. And he went from Saul to Paul. He became St. Paul, the author of 80% of the New Testament, in one instant, one moment. There was a young man, 22 years old, in 1734, named John Newton. John Newton was a slave ship owner. He had a cargo of human beings in the holds underneath the ship, in the lower bowels of the ship, some 170 people, all chained. And he was on his way from Senegal in West Africa to Colombia in South Carolina. And he was going to sell these people into slavery and bondage in this hideous, nefarious practice that was so widely accepted and so contaminated our consciousness in the 17th and 18th centuries in the British and American Empire. And he heard the wailing of one man, it is said, legend says, and they encountered a hurricane. And in this hurricane, or in this terrible storm, the ship was being tossed about. And he thought that he was going to die, and all the people on board were going to die. And in that moment, he took out a pen and a paper, and on the back of an envelope, it is said, that he wrote the words to a song. And after writing these words to the song, what happened is that the storm passed, and they were still alive, and he turned his ship around, and he returned to Africa. And there, he disembarked all of the future prisoners, freed them, and the ones that were still alive, and he went to Bristol in England and became the most ardent spokesman for the abolition of slavery for the next 55 years until it was abolished in the early 1800s. His name was John Newton. The words to the song were, "I once was lost, and now I'm found." And it was grace. He called this grace. This reconnecting, not only reconnecting to your source, but knowing that it is you and you are it. And there's something bigger moving these pieces around to which you can never be disconnected. But as Castaneda said, sorcerers are not only concerned, let's see if I have that here. Sorcerers are not only concerned with understanding and explaining this connecting link, but they are especially concerned with cleansing it of the numbing effects brought about by the concerns of living at ordinary levels of consciousness. It's numbing to live here, when here is just over the horizon and a quantum moment away. And it's sung by someone who has a voice that is only, I just call her the angel. She sings like an angel. Her name is Cecilia. She has traveled with me back years ago, and I asked her to put out her own CD singing the songs that reflect the message that I am destined to teach across this planet until I leave. You Raise Me Up, From a Distance, Ave Maria, which they play in Lourdes when we do the procession, Over the Rainbow, I Believe, The Rose. And this song, of course, is called Amazing Grace. And it's accompanied by the Whales. She's the first person in the history of the Oslo Conservatory of Music in Norway to receive a perfect score on all facets of voice. She reaches the 10th octave. You'll hear it right in here. accompanied by the whales, who live right in my front yard on Kaanapali Beach. And they're there now waiting for me. I'll be there next Sunday after I visit my mom. And getting those whales into the sound booths and putting the headphones on, very expensive. Put this thing together. You can move the traffic. This is how high this calibrates. In a traffic jam, put it in there and things change in your world. So ladies and gentlemen, listen to Cecilia accompanied by the whales singing John Newton's Amazing Grace. I once was lost. I once didn't know who I am. And now I'm found. You were so touched, weren't you? Would you like a copy of this? There you are, enjoy it. It's a gift. And this message is never too young to get started. That's why I've written these children's books. Are there any pregnant ladies in the room? Anybody pregnant? Nobody? The theme of this thing is called I Can Do It at Sea. So maybe, who's pregnant? Where is she? Where is she? Here. Would you like a children's book? Would you read to your new baby? Congratulations. Since nobody else is claiming them, I'm going to give you all 4. I have 4 of them. Just read them to your growing miracle inside and know that there's nothing for you to do. Just let it be. You're very welcome. God bless you. The great teacher Patanjali put it this way. He said, when you are inspired, meaning in spirit, when you're in spirit, you are God. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all of your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction. And you find yourself in a new and a great and a wonderful world. And then he said, dormant forces, forces you thought were dead, faculties and talents come alive. And you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be, because you discover you are God. So for the rest of your days, you have this choice. You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's all up to you. God bless you, and thank you.